Good day. Welcome to the CORY Morgan Show on a nice chilly day coming out of Calgary live, moving towards the holiday season. To see somebody's went and stuck little snowflakes on the glass in the window behind me in the studio here, so we're looking all festive like. So the politics haven't stopped despite the holidays approaching. Lots going on provincially, federally, lots of stuff to rant about, which I will in a moment. The show is live for those tuning in, so hey, use that comment scroll, send questions my way. Uh, to each other. Just try to remain somewhat civil. We can always fight on X later on. I got a guest coming on. It's going to be a great chat. His name's Rob Louie, and he runs an advocacy group pushing for accountability on the leadership among Indigenous bands. And yeah, it's quite a task he's taken on, but it's appreciated because they really need it. So when we see Wayne there saying you're supposed to get 12 inches of snow in Billy, so there, things can be worse. Enjoy that down there. All right, so let's get on to what I'm going to get on about. I made the title nice and non-inflammatory today about angry white militant separatists armed to the teeth. So, I mean, normally, usually the best course of action when it comes to anything with disgraced former Redford era MLA Thomas Lukaszuk is just to ignore him. Unfortunately, we have to pay attention to him now. He's gone from being a vain, ineffective has-been, desperately seeking attention, to being a dangerously irresponsible voice trying to inflame division among Albertans. So, in an opinion piece written by Donna Kennedy Glanz in the National Post, Lukaszuk's quoted making statements about Alberta independent supporters, which could cause some irreparable rifts across the country. And not only that, but Lukaszuk's apparently been taking this uninformed pap before the Liberal government. And if they take his inflammatory ramblings seriously, they could make moves against Alberta based on a perceived threat to national security. So let's break down Lukaszuk's words. He described Alberta independent supporters, and this is his words, as a very small group of angry militant men armed to their teeth. Well, to begin with, support for independence in Alberta is polling consistently around 30%. So that's 1.5 million people and growing. To dismiss that as being very small is insulting and dead wrong. And they're hardly all men, of course, either. How dare Thomas misgender so many people? More disturbing, though, is his claim that independent supporters are armed to the teeth. I mean, yeah, lots of Albertans responsibly own firearms, but they don't do so, disproportionately to the rest of the country. In fact, Albertans are fourth in Canada for firearms per capita when compared to other provinces and territories. Canada itself is the seventh most armed civilian population on the planet, though the Liberals don't like to be reminded of that. So why is Lukaszuk saying we're armed to the teeth? Well, Lukaszuk always used the word militant. He's trying to make the case that an armed insurrection is building up within the province of Alberta. And I mean, the claim is laughable, but it has to be taken seriously because this is what Lukaszuk apparently has been telling Prime Minister Carney's government in meetings Thomas claims to have attended. This is his words. Lukaszuk said, I met with the Prime Minister's office and with the federal caucus and with most of the Senate last week. And he asserts he's going to be heading out east to meet with the government again next week. Now, he says he's warned the government that a growing independent movement presents a national security issue. And here's his words again. Here are issues that need to be dealt with immediately because we can't have a segment of the population that is angry. What does he mean having the federal government deal with this issue? When making the case that there's a national security issue with an armed insurrection building up and that the government must deal with it, stands to reason he's asking for the federal government to intervene within Alberta, possibly with force. This is a dangerous road to go on, to say the least. Alberta's independence movement has been nothing but peaceful. There's no better way, though, to make a peaceful situation, take it and make it tense than bring a military presence into an area and try and stifle political organization. And of course, Lukaszuk had to play the race card, too. He said, in any country, you can't have a large cohort of angry white men. What's he proposing here? Is a certain tipping point of white men allowed to take part in politics? When he's advising the federal government that they apparently can't allow this, what exactly does he think they're supposed to do and step in? The independence movement is much more diverse than Lukaszuk is painting it, of course, but does Ottawa know that? Lukaszuk's bending the ears of the Laurentian elites within Carney's government. They rarely venture west of Thunder Bay to slum it with the unwashed Western Canadians. Their vision is of a province populated by living caricatures of Yosemite Sam running around firing 6 guns into the air while women are chained in the kitchens in modest Amish-style dresses. And actually, Thomas went after religion too, but he didn't use Amish. He said the independence movement, here's his words again, sort of evangelical Mormon oil and gas industry flavor to it. He chose carefully as Only about 0.1% of Ontarians identify as Mormons. That way he'll be unchecked as he implies the independence movement may be controlled by some shadowy, strange religious sect that nobody out there is familiar with. Oil and gas types are apparently a danger to be countered as well. One can hope that the powers that be in Ottawa dismiss Lukaszuk as the crank that he is. If they take him seriously, though, some actions could come from Ottawa that may antagonize this peaceful movement into creating the kind of anger he claims is there. And then that's likely his intent. He wants to provoke disorder to justify government intervention. If Lukaszuk truly wanted to fight the Alberta independence movement, he would be speaking to Albertans rather than in Ottawa, wouldn't he? He understands, though, that Albertans at large still have no use for him, and he's hoping to find political favor in the East. If anything, his endorsement of federalism would increase Albertan support for independence. His self-serving political game, though, guys, it is dangerous. Very dangerous. And yeah, if anything's got to be countered, it's that crazed nutcase going to Ottawa and claiming to speak on our behalf. All right. That's what's got me going today. How's it going, Dave?
Good. You're buffering badly.
That's what I'm seeing on the comments. Sorry, guys. I don't know. It's bad internet going on, I guess. There's not much I can do about that. Yell it, tell us.
Maybe Derek didn't pay the bill.
That could be. Well, then we wouldn't be on at all.
Yes, that's a good point. So top of the season to you. You got got your Christmas shopping done?
Well, I don't really do much for Christmas shopping. I'm a cheap bugger when it comes to that.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yes. Well, my kids are at the age now where they just get cash.
Yeah.
So that's the easiest way.
Nobody's ever bothered with that.
Got the grandson's first Christmas, so that
would
be nice. Someday. So yeah, we're going into the deep chill tomorrow, eh?
Yeah, it's
minus 20 plus. Yeah. You've got a river flowing through your acreage, your compound.
We bound on it, yeah.
Does it freeze over? Can you go skating?
It does freeze over. I don't know about skating on it. We have a rink nearby, though. If I went skating, it's a sad, sad sight. I am not a skater.
Well. Well, as you said, the news isn't stopping just because it's getting Christmas time. The recall train is going on, and 3 more recalls have been certified, including the Premier, Daniel Smith. So I think that brings 18.
20.
Is it 20 now?
I just saw another update.
Oh, just they're happening as I've been in here.
Yeah.
So I guess that would be 19 UCP and 1 NDP.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, and and I know that none of them will amount to anything.
No, the only question is whether they're going to let these guys run around and waste their time trying to get signatures in this weather to invoke recalls that won't happen, or if finally the government's just going to come in and shut down the process, which is a shame because, it has some merit potentially, but the unions have decided we shouldn't have it.
Yeah, not the way it's being used now. You remember comedian Ben Bankus was in town recently, and he had his show canceled, and he had to find another venue. Well, the same thing has happened to him in Ontario. Sault Ste. Marie facility has canceled him, and we've got an exclusive interview with the man himself on what he plans to do next. Peter Guthrie, MLA for Airdrie, former UCP MLA until he was given the boot for complaining over the procurement scandal. He is the new leader of the Alberta Party. So the Alberta Party has a seat in the legislature now, Corey.
Well, that's how they typically get seats in the legislature till the next election.
Till the next election, and then they're dealt with. Bill 9 passed in the wee hours of this morning. That's the bill that UCP are using the notwithstanding clause to get through. It bans trans from women's sport. It provides parents have to be told if their kid's changing a pronoun at school, and it bans gender surgery on children under 18. Got a teacher in Edmonton, Corey, and I'm going to look at this school just so I don't mispronounce it. It's Hilwee Hemden School. He has been charged with multiple counts of child exploitation for having a 2-year online conversation with a student that he's got under there. And the creepy thing is it's a grade kindergarten to grade 9 school. So it could have started when the poor kid was in grade 7. So that's not a good situation. BC Conservative MLA Carrie Lynn Finlay has become the first to throw her hat into the ring to replace ousted leader John Rustad. And that's going to be a fascinating race.
They've really got to figure out who they are, and this race is going to...
Exactly. Rumors that Aaron Gunn is going to go for it. And you know what? It wouldn't surprise me to see Mr. Rustad himself throw his hat into the ring.
Well, he certainly didn't want to let go of the job.
No.
If he could win it that way, I guess, it would shut them up.
Yeah.
It would certainly make it interesting.
I thought about you when we did this story this morning, and the headline is Bah Humbug. And his Angus Reid poll shows a significant number of Canadians are struggling this Christmas season and are having trouble. And this will come as a shocker to you, Corey. The deputy head of the Department of Industry admitted he lied when he told MPs about the $15 billion Stellantis deal for a battery factory that will never be built. Lied, Corey. Imagine that, a federal official lying.
Unheard of.
Admitting it.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe that's a sign, too, that, they don't face any consequences.
Oh, no.
Either, so.
No, and he'll get his Christmas bonus on Friday and go home very happy.
Some Stellantis people are pretty happy, too. Just us who have to pay the bills.
Yeah, those 4,000 people who were laid off, not so happy.
No. Well, lots on the go. And federally, the House of Commons, there's been a lot of posturing with pipelines.
Oh, pipelines. It was an attempt by the Polyev Tories to embarrass the government, basically.
Yeah.
We're to put in a motion, do you support pipelines? Liberals said they're not going to support it because of A, B, and C. Polyev then amends the motion to include A, B, and C, and the Liberals still vote against it. So it's sort of it's a man-made distraction.
Parliamentary pissing match.
Yeah, exactly what it is. So, and it takes the building of a pipeline in Alberta 0 steps forward or backwards, I guess.
Yeah, nothing's changed.
No.
I think we speculate on whether they have any intent whatsoever getting that pipeline done or not, but they have no more or less of it today than they did yesterday.
Exactly.
All right, well, it gives us stuff to watch anyways. So as we do march towards the closure of those legislatures and Parliament and the Christmas season, maybe we'll report on some bright stuff next week.
Speaking of which, next Friday I leave, so Wednesday will be the last time you can give me the gift.
Oh, yeah, that's why you're asking about whether I've been shopping.
Yes.
It's just as, such a specialized store, I'll have to look harder to find exactly what I
if you got some leftover honey, I'm sure my mom will take it.
I'm certain I could find some of that.
There you go. We're set.
Right on. Thanks, Dave.
You bet.
I'll talk to you after the show. All right, that is our news editor, Dave Naylor. You'll get another dose of him today if you're watching the Pipeline, actually, this evening. He's going to be sitting on with myself and Nigel, and we'll break down a few more of the issues and chat about those things. And yeah, the parliamentary games, the politics, it's kind of fun to watch for wonky folks like me sometimes. But as Dave said, it's not making a difference, really. It corners them, I guess. It drives home the reality that this memorandum of understanding, this thing about a pipeline, look, if Carney wants to get it done, he has to say it. He actually has to come out and say, we're doing it. And he won't. Whenever he's cornered on it, he utters a bunch of weasel words and then goes and runs away and hides. When asked in Parliament whether you guys support this thing, they find excuses and won't vote for it. Look, when a government really wants to get things done, we've seen that, they do it. They just do it. They'll find a way. They will fast track things. They will negotiate things in a hurry. They won't put out a big, long piece of paper and have a signing and say it's going to lead to something, because it won't. They're kicking the can down the road. We've seen this many, many times. What's quite surprising is that Premier Smith is taking part in the game. I guess she's got to try and remain optimistic and think that something can actually come about from this. You don't want to dismiss things out of hand, but it's looking pretty darn bleak as far as that goes. We'll see. So, speaking of, I guess, political accountability and games and so on, for people not familiar with politics on the reserves in Canada, it is a special sort of place. They're very tight communities and they're very tight races. And unfortunately, there's often been challenges with accountability. And my next guest, Robert Louis, has been working hard and helping represent Indigenous band members seeking accountability from their band leadership in a number of areas, whether it's in elections or band governance and things like that. And he's running a group called Band Members Alliance and Advocacy Association of Canada. So let's bring Mr. Louis on and see what he's been getting up to. Let's see. There we go. Hello, Rob. How you doing?
Good. Good morning, Corey.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming in. You're down in the East Kootenays, I believe, aren't you?
I am. I'm Rob Louis. I'm the founder and president of the Band Members Alliance and Advocacy Association of Canada. It's quite a mouthful, but so we use the acronym BMAC.
Yeah. So, I guess, I'll start maybe just with a bit of your own history. What led to you becoming an advocate for this sort of thing?
Great. Well, if I were to rewind the tape, I was one of the first band members to graduate from high school way back in 1990. I think there was like 3 or 4 of us out of a generation of about 30. And I went on to pursue post-secondary studies. In other words, I got off the res, went to the University of Victoria, University of British Columbia, and York University, respectively. So I do hold a bachelor's of political science degree, a law degree, and a master's in law degree specializing in constitutional law.
Okay. So, and you took that, education, that hard work, and you're bringing it forth to advocate on behalf of band members. A particular episode brought you, I guess, into that rather than say just going into divorce law or suing people for car accidents for the easy money.
Right, right. So I was once a legal practitioner. I did practice way back when at a criminal defense firm. Um, and then, I'm also quite open in a general way about my being a recovering alcoholic. So I do intend on reapplying to the Law Society of British Columbia in the new year to gain my license again. And that will certainly up the game. But in the meantime, for the last 6 years, I have been, shall we say, suing chiefs that have sticky fingers and are not above board with their band members.
Yeah. And so this has been kind of almost an unforeseen consequence, I would think. I mean, in the older days, a long time ago, the situation was very patronizing. Bands kind of were managed from outside. The government really didn't allow bands to do much on their own, but they flipped over to a concept of self-government, saying, we want to let bands manage their own affairs and take care of things. But it seems it's led to a lack of oversight or accountability with the funding. So unfortunately, if you get leadership that's unprincipled, it can become very difficult to track whether or not they've been properly managing resources.
Yes, and I did catch the tail end of your previous guest, and he mentioned, federal officials stealing money and awarding themselves Christmas bonuses. I thought only chiefs did that, but I guess that happens in the mainstream too. Yeah, so
it happens in politics.
Fair enough. Well, in the last 6 years, since BMAC was registered as a federal nonprofit society, and with the team of different lawyers and law firms from British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario, I have come to know that I think it's fair to say that it's pretty evenly split when it comes to band integrity and band council accountability. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of good First Nations out there that are doing the right thing, but I would say the other half are not. And it's those chiefs that we are looking to hold accountable. We are right now in 4 lawsuits, and with the most recent one coming in the Piikani Nation down by Brockett, Alberta. Now, that one isn't so much a financial matter, but it's a case where we have a female elected leader who was wrongfully removed from the council simply because she started asking questions of the chief and her fellow councillors of their spending of bad money. So not only did they suspend her and then stripped her of her salary, which effectively removed her, but they were supposed to have a hearing on this, and we've been waiting for, or she's been waiting for a year on this. So she finally reached out to us. We got her lawyered up, and I'm doing the prep work with her, and we're going to be filing in the federal court next week. First of all, to get her money back, her back pay, and then to challenge this really ridiculous process that they have.
Yeah, well, that would be, I guess you could say, the equivalent of a mayor in a city kicking out a council member that they don't agree with. We have mechanisms outside of the reserve that keeps that from happening. I mean, they can fight with each other and do what they like, but the mayor doesn't have the authority to remove somebody. What sort of oversight? I mean, in our case, we could go to Elections Alberta or in BC, Elections BC or things like that. But what is the authority when it comes to band management?
Well, yeah, you hit it right on the head. And, you did mention that a lot of the reserves are tight knit. That's true, but we don't live in the Harmony Hut either. So when there is a band member that, or band members that are calling for accountability and transparency insofar as like we can't even see the friggin' audit. That's a problem. Now, let me put it this way to you, Corey. If the prime minister or the premier or even the mayor suddenly rescinded a financial law that would govern or oversee elected officials' spending, there's nonprofits and organizations and law firms that will be lining up around the corner to file against the premier or the prime minister or the mayor. Well, in Canada, there is no such organizations other than BMAC that's able to do that. So the demand far exceeds the capacity that we have right now. So I just want to say, just on that note too, one last thing, Corey, is that we're actually in a case right now that was just heard in Calgary federal court last week, a BC case where the chief and council received $31 million on behalf of the band. And mind you, this is a really small band of about 300 members of the Lower Kootenay Indian Band in Creston, British Columbia. They received $31 million. And instead of announcing it to the members, they went in camera, the band council did, and rescinded, in other words, canceled out the financial administration law that was governing this band for the last decade. So, go figure, you get a whack of money and suddenly not only do you not tell the members, people that you serve, but you're suddenly operating in a legal vacuum.
Yeah, and it takes so much fighting. I mean, a case that isn't one you've been working on, I believe, but we saw recently, just since it came up in the news, was that Frog Lake reserve up there with Hans McCarty. And I mean, they were managing $102 million since 2013 and messed it down all the way to $9 million, but they won't tell anybody what they spent it on, and they won't disclose to the members what happened with it. He had to go to a battle to do this, and you really shouldn't have to.
Well, Hans McCarthy is a friend of mine. He did reach out to me, and we did help him initially. And the Canadian Taxpayers Federation took over from there to help Hans. And yeah, that was one of the most egregious cases I've seen, where there's initially 120 million, but they can only account for 102 million. And then it dwindles down to like 17 million over 10 years. And what Hans McCarthy, this is what the federal government, I think, are complicit in the I just call it financial hanky-panky going on in a lot of the reserves, is because Hans McCarthy needed the band council resolutions, the paperwork on how that money was taken from the feds and given to the band council, but the feds would not cough up or consent to releasing any information unless the chief and council consented. So this was a case where who the wrongdoer is, what's wrong, and the crimes that are, financial crimes really, that are being committed, but you have to ask the perpetrator permission for, to move this ahead. And that's, I'm glad the federal court sided with the bandler saying, you have the right to these documents, and the feds have to cough it up now.
Yeah, well, so accountability goes a little farther than just in the band councils and such. I noticed on your website the things that you help represent band members with is also on police misconduct and abuse cases. Was there a specific case that has led to having that listed on your services?
So we have essentially 4 core areas. That case there, so we did receive a call for help about a year ago from a Blackfoot family where an individual was shot by the RCMP in Grand Forks, British Columbia. And we were claiming, or this family was claiming, that this was a wrongful shooting and negligence. So we're grateful to have some law firms that specialize in suing the police, one being Murphy Batista, law firm out of Vancouver. And so Murphy Batista is also doing a class action against the RCMP for any abuse from, I believe, 1955 onwards. So if Indigenous people that were arrested in the drunk tank, holding cells if they were beat up or abused, would qualify as a class member for this class action against the RCMP. So we do help with those kind of cases. And then, if there's, Aboriginal men or women getting beat up by the cops, those days hopefully be coming to an end with our help. But again, we know that it happens. It's just a matter of getting more capacity to help these people.
So going beyond the immediate cases, which is appreciated, what has to be done so that your services won't be needed? Like what are the, we don't want to say turn the clock back and take away all form of self-government or being able to manage their own affairs on the reserves. But at the same time, it seems that we need some sort of outside oversight to make sure that things are being managed well from the outside too. How can that balance be found?
Yeah, no, good question, Corey. But nothing makes me shudder more when I hear the word self-government. In my personal and professional experience, that hasn't been a good news for a lot of band members because the chief and council really don't have any impetus to follow the law unless a band member challenges them. So what we need to do, first of all, is I think folks, should get behind, an organization like BMAC. We are the only game in town right now, and I hope that we can expand. So our membership is open to the general public if anyone wants to become a member. But also, and I think equally important, Corey, that there needs to be a national ombudsperson, specifically for First Nations people, or an auditor general, to help with this, the financial accountability and oversight that you speak of. Because right now, there is good legislation on the books. It's called the First Nation Financial Transparency Act. Now, Stephen Harper, the Conservative government back in 2012, enacted that. When Justin Trudeau came in a few years later, he said, well, we're not going to enforce it like Stephen Harper did, and we're going to leave it to band members to use it and pay out of their own pocket if they want to use the Financial Transparency Act. And we say that's just morally and legally wrong. So, we need to have some sort of national ombudsperson in place.
Yeah, well, and as you put it out, I mean, we see it unfortunately everywhere. It's an unfortunate aspect of human nature. Whether it's not just a band thing. We hear about, as you said at the start of this, with Stellantis and so on. There's politicians, unfortunately, and some bureaucrats lining their pockets. Sometimes they're caught, sometimes they're not. But if there's no means of accountability, no means of oversight, it's it's just inviting these sorts of problems.
Well, exactly that. And I think the difference is that there's a lot more regulatory schemes and organizations in the mainstream to hold elected officials accountable at the municipal, provincial, and federal level. There's nothing whatsoever in place for First Nations at the Indigenous governance level.
What about whistleblower protection? I won't go into that rabbit hole of a separate issue I'm having with the Siksika Reserve, for example, but there's some people from in the reserve have been communicating with me, which is great, and they're sharing things, but they're afraid to come forward in person because they don't want to bring the wrath of the band leadership down upon themselves, and there's no protections for people if they speak out about the band management. Is there a way we could perhaps, protect people who have come out to speak?
Yeah, no, that's another good question. Corey, whether there is or isn't legislation to protect whistleblowers, the inherent problem is that a lot of the reserves, including Siksika, I would go so far to say, the members live in such a silo that, to use the analogy of, the mafia, if they speak out, they get whacked. And by that, in the First Nations context, that means you will not receive any band services. You won't even get firewood, for example. These are cases that I've seen firsthand. Or if you work at the band office, the worst case is that you're fired without procedural fairness. The best case is, they won't find your paycheck on time. You'll have to wait the next week. You have to wait around for a payday. So that's really the difference, that even with legislation, Corey, the problems run deeper than that. It's systemic.
Yeah, well, and that's why it's important to have people like you, there to stand up for residents and citizens, because they don't necessarily know how to play the legal or political game. Unfortunately, sometimes it's a game. So before I let you go, one more time, then with people, whether they want to, look more about your organization or seeking your help or want to support it, where can they find you?
Yeah, Corey. So again, it's BMAC is the acronym, BMAAAC.org. There's 3 A's in there. If you type in 2 A's, BMAA, you're going to go to the Black Men's Association of America. So make sure folks type in 3 A's, BMAAC.org. And if you want to become a member, it's all on there. And thank you kindly for having me, Corey.
Well, I appreciate you coming on to talk to us today and the work you're doing. So thank you. And I hope we can speak again, maybe as some of your cases are getting settled.
Okay. And with that, I wish you a good day, and to your audience as well. Take care.
Great. Thanks. So yeah, folks, just, one more time. So that's the Band Members Alliance and Advocacy Association of Canada. Or again, if you search out Robert Louis, you'll find those sorts of things. And this is what I like to see more of, rather than talking about more legislation, more bureaucrats, more, interference with people, is maybe giving citizens more mechanisms to be able to speak up for themselves. As Rob was saying, the situation is different on the reserve. You're in a community where you are quite controlled in many senses by a band council and chief. And if you rock the boat too much, it can bring consequences that we don't have to deal with off reserve. We don't understand. It's not the same out here. And when you've got the reserve sometimes being the sole source of employment, or as he said, or if you're on one where the reserve manages delivering your firewood, they might sound like petty things, but if you're relying on firewood to heat your house, it's a pretty big problem when suddenly you're not getting it. So having some advocates come out and speak like that is really, really important. And it's good to see Rob doing these sorts of things. Consider supporting these guys, because the answer isn't always more government. It's sometimes just empowering the people on the ground more so they can stand up to government. I mean, you got to remember, band and council, the council and chief are actually government. It's just another level of it. So adding another overseer might not be the way to, but there does have to, as he brought up, it was just an invitation for problems when Trudeau turned back and stopped the financial oversight that Stephen Harper brought in. And it's not a racial thing. Every place, every business, on reserve or off reserve, every level of government, on reserve, off reserve, has to have some kind of oversight. I mean, you've got to have some third party look and say, okay, these books are good, these expenditures are correct, these actions are right. It's not being patronizing, it's not being overbearing, it's being applying common sense. And we don't see that a lot, unfortunately. So, check them out, guys. There's just lots to go. And I do believe, and you've heard me on this show many times, so it's one of my bigger areas. Our biggest policy failures, our most embarrassing policy failures is the whole Indigenous system in general, where we've got all of these people in such difficult circumstances on reserves all over the country because of poor management. Sometimes it's well-meaning with the policies they brought in, sometimes it wasn't, but it's just turned into unfortunately a mess, and it's just really harming people all around. So yeah, speaking of crazy politics, then let's get back a little more closer to home. Peter Guthrie, Dave mentioned him. He's the MLA for up in Airdrie area. He left the party some time back, as Dave said, over a beef over the healthcare thing with Premier Smith. But he's been just kind of a chronic oppositional type on the sidelines ever since, him and another MLA from up in Slave Lake. And now they've decided they're taking over the Alberta party. And I got to laugh about this. They wanted to bring about the name again of Progressive Conservatives. So they wanted to resurrect the Alison Redford party that Albertans, were sick and tired of. But he can't get the name. And now there's some political maneuvering on the part of the United Conservative Party to stop that and everything else. But now he's taken over the Alberta party. The Alberta party has turned itself kind of into a receptacle for embittered politicians that are on the out. There's one time they elected a member, they actually elected one. Other times they've had members on and off throughout the years, but as soon as an election comes around, they just get obliterated. You watch, though, I'm going to make my prediction for legacy media, because they love the Alberta party. Because the Alberta party is just the Liberal party with a coat of paint on it. And because the Liberals can't win in Alberta under the name Liberal. And they are going to pump the tires of Peter Guthrie's little Alberta party, because they do that every time. They do that every election. With every new leader of the Alberta party, just comes and goes and fails. The legacy media will give them all sorts of interviews, all sorts of oxygen, all sorts of time, hoping to turn them into something. And then they'll just get wiped out in the election. But whatever, that's democracy. Mr. Guthrie certainly has the means to do it. But politically, organizing-wise, we'll see. I just saw him post on X before the show started, and he said something like, he's still calling it the PC movement of Alberta. So he's trying to call it both Progressive Conservative and Alberta Party. It's just going to confuse things for himself and make it difficult. Let's get into some divisive politics. Things have been going on in the independence movement in Alberta, because it's really been getting inflamed. It's really been moving along. the reality that if anything has been proven by Premier Smith, now that Bill 14 came in, for non-Albertans, people aware of it, it's, she brought about the referendum legislation. Unfortunately, they messed up that legislation, allowing the electoral officer to punt it into the courts and drag it out to try and have a referendum on independence. So now they brought Bill 14, said, okay, we're changing that so that we will control keep it from going to the courts, being thrown that way. It basically takes it out of the hands of the chief electoral officer. There's going to be a referendum. They wouldn't invest this much political capital, go into this much grief, push this far ahead if they didn't want to see a referendum. And some people are saying, yeah, but Smith has to come out and say she wants independence. No, she doesn't. She wasn't elected on that. We've got to stop that stupid talk. Got to stop that stupid talk. If you're an independent supporter, tell the other independent supporters who keep pissing around in the party politics to cut it out. There's going to be a referendum within a year. Focus on that, because there's not enough support to win a referendum right now for independence. Not even close. I don't care what people want to say. I speak optimistically of it. I'm pushing for it. I want that number to change. I want to see a yes vote. I've never made a secret of that. But if you're dedicating all your resources to fighting with each other and fighting with Premier Smith, and just fighting with anybody who comes within eyesight of you, and people I think know which person I'm talking about, who represents one of the larger independence groups out there, you're wasting a whole bunch of energy that could be dedicated to a referendum. And then some of the people who follow each are fighting with each other and wasting more energy that could be dedicated to a referendum. Just focus on the bloody referendum. Quit shooting and complaining and fighting with each other, as you've got a bigger battle to do, guys. And it's just getting absurd. So let's see. We'll go through some of these other news items. Oh, yeah, this is an interesting one. The president of the National Police Federation. Some of the people are starting to say the quiet part out loud, and I'm happy to hear that. He said Canada's experienced an increase in violent crime in recent years, while also noting rising immigration numbers. Yes, now, it's not fully blaming every crime on immigrants. No, don't worry. We got plenty of homegrown criminals and losers who were born here, as well as others come in. But there's no doubt when we bring in mass immigration, that's the word that we got to start using correctly anyways. Mass immigration. Most common sense people aren't opposed to all immigration. No, immigration, when managed properly, is a benefit to all of us. But you have to manage it. You have to say, where do we need people? What categories of people do we need? How many people can this area absorb properly so everybody is settled? Things like that. We haven't been doing that at all. Trudeau just opened the floodgates. It's been a decade of mass immigration. And crime is one of the areas that's been a consequence. Of course, the other one is our healthcare has been overwhelmed. Our housing was overwhelmed. Our schools were overwhelmed. This didn't take a political scientist to figure out. You got this many services and you're bringing this much demand, you're going to overwhelm it. And it's overwhelming our prison and police services as well. But the thing that's different right now is seeing some senior officials daring to utter it, because of course you're always afraid to question immigration because you're going to get called the R word. That's coming along. We saw Thomas Lukaszuk. It's just white guys in Alberta that are upset, right? But that's the way it goes. They're losing that fear because we just have to say it now. It's undeniable. It's problematic. It's out of control. And admitting the problem is the first step in moving towards a solution. I don't think Canada as a whole is going to solve it, but Alberta sure can. I'm going to talk a little bit something I saw recently. When we're talking about courts, Supreme Court, all of that, which again, we have our judges writing our laws and so essentially activist judges. We got some serious problems in Canada with our levels of government. I talk about Switzerland often because I like their model as decentralized government, very disempowered federal government with a more of a council that shares terms as president. But the other thing is their Supreme Court. It's nothing like ours. And their judges are elected for 6-year terms by the Federal Assembly. So elected people and then elect them, not appointed by a single person like we have in Canada. And then they hear appeals from the cantonal courts, administrative rulings. But the real neat part is the Supreme Court can't comment on law put forward by Parliament. Yeah, it's not their role. You don't have their Supreme Court overruling or commenting or dealing with the laws that come from Parliament. They're there for other issues. And it says that role is assumed by the people which acts as a guardian and can repeal any legislation or constitutional change, because they have referendum and recall legislation in Switzerland. I don't know about recall, but they got referendum legislation. Very strong referendum legislation. They aren't abusing it here as the unions in Alberta are. You put the power into the people's hands. And over there, they've taken it out of the courts. Because that was something interesting, too, that the temper tantrum that the judge had, the judge who had ruled that an independence referendum in Alberta would be unconstitutional, because the legislation came along and said, well, fine, whatever, but we're going to hold one anyway. And that's more the attitude Alberta's going to have anyway. We're just going to do it. I'm not asking. Just going to do it. I don't care what you think. But he was pretty ticked because, he thought it was his role to decide whether or not we're allowed to have one, and it was taken away from him. So he just shot at things in general. You know what? You're there to be a judge, not to offer political opinion, actually. I know it's a fine line to talk between the two. But either way, I'm just saying, as we start the mental deliberations on what a post-independence system would potentially look like, I like looking at the Swiss. And we're moving towards it. Commenter 86 saying the whole Westminster system is fundamentally flawed because it promotes winning elections over serving the people in the best way possible. Yeah, it's just the Westminster system is, superior to the feudal system that it sort of evolved out of. It was better than that, but it's not a good modern system. That gets back to the whole basis of the independence thing. This is a broken system. We're swirling the drain. The deficits are getting higher. The debt, we're shutting in our own resources because the leaders are all playing political games rather than actually looking at what is best for the country as a whole. And regions are getting shut out of developing themselves. It's got to fall apart, and it's going to. But it's just a matter of how and when. This stuff, speaking of Quebec, something I posted on X. This is something independent supporters should be doing, and I mean it. I mean it politely in a sense, and honestly. I fully support the full independence of Quebec from the Federation of Canada. Why not? Of course I do. Go for it. Let us help them. And there's the PQ is in position to win a majority government if they can get an election for the first time in a long, long time, and they're doing it on the promise of holding a referendum. I wholeheartedly want them to win, and I want them to hold a referendum. It's going to be a year before they hold an election, a little less than a year, and of course a referendum will take a little longer. But boy, this country is coming to a head, guys. We can't save all of it, not under this system, but we can save parts of it as we go. And then who knows what the PQ wants to do, try and fix things over there. Something that's going to make their job a little easier. This just came out. Quebec's anti-corruption squad, and yeah, there's a busy department in Quebec, is opening an investigation into the Quebec Liberal Party itself. And Pablo Rodriguez said that an investigation's underway, and he's hoping they'll get to the bottom of it. Pablo Rodriguez, you might remember, was part of the Trudeau government, and he moved over to head the Liberals. Either way, those provincial Liberals are trying to run against the PQ for next year. This investigation, their ties would appear to be, with corruption going on with them, is not going to help them in the election very much. So the chances of the PQ winning Quebec become all the stronger. Let's keep watching that. On top of that, again, Canada's mess. There's another article. A growing wave of cargo transport, truck, and trailer thefts have been hitting Canada, costing industry and consumers millions of dollars, constantly. Yes, again, because our political cowards in Ottawa have allowed the Teamsters and the Longshoremen's Union to own the ports and the trucking facilities. And we've got organized crime infiltrating those areas. We don't check containers. We don't track stuff. It's not just the smuggling that goes through there, but stuff gets targeted for theft as well. Why? Because Canada is broken. Those are areas, again, where federal oversight's supposed to happen, but they don't do it. They don't do their job. They're busy just navel-gazing, or as the commenter said, just doing all they can to get reelected and not really looking at what they have to do to run this country. It's an annoying and frightening time in some ways, but I'm looking at it with optimism. We keep pushing things. We can't save it all, as I said, but we can save part of it, and we're moving closer and closer towards it. So stop fighting each other. Look around your own area, see what you can do. And for you guys who want independence, just look at the referendum. Don't worry about the jackasses who want to just keep fighting with everybody, including the provincial government. They're giving you the mechanism. All right, guys, like I said, be sure to tune in to the pipeline tonight. It's going to be Dave and Nigel Hannaford and myself breaking down a few more issues and chatting on some of those. And subscribe to all those Western Standard channels. Share them, all of that. We will talk about the issues like immigration and such that the other outlets are too cowardly to cover. And it's important. We appreciate your support. And I'll catch you next week at this time.